Welcome in, everyone, to the First Call podcast. We usually say TGIF, but we're a day early because Oaks Friday this weekend and Kentucky Derby Saturday is upon us. Our Thursday edition of the First Call podcast features him, Jeff Siegel, and I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're from First Bet and Express Bet. We do this each and every week. Kentucky Derby week, we've got a lot of new viewers, so welcome in to you and to our veteran viewers. Thanks for coming back. Be sure to hit the like buttons and share this out with everybody across your various platforms. Mr. Siegel, we've got a huge weekend. We've been waiting 365 days since last year's Kentucky Derby to do this all over again. And man, did they line up with the field sizes this weekend at Churchill.
27 races I handicapped this week for Express Bet, 13 and then 14 on Derby Day. And they're on the website if you want to get some early handicapping in.
Great.
Hopefully we don't have too many late scratches that will decimate the analysis. But for right now, I think it's pretty solid and some great racing. Just a fantastic 2 days of racing, a really good wagering opportunity in the Oaks and certainly the Derby itself. So I'm looking forward to a glorious day of racing at Churchill Downs.
High-end racing is very appealing. We know that this is going to be the biggest handle day of the year. It always is. This is fantastic. But blue-collar handicappers and horse players want big field sizes, and as you mentioned, 27 races over the 2 days. There are one each day, that has less than 10 in the original entries. So barring scratches, I mean, we are looking at box cars here in terms of the multi-race wagers, in terms of the intra-race wagers. I always say I need 10 or more to get involved in tries and supers in a particular race. The windows are open this weekend. There are 10 or more in just about every single opportunity. We handicap 8 stakes races here on the First Call podcast. Let's talk about what the lineup will be this weekend. For the benefit of those of you on our audio channels, thanks for listening in. Here is the schedule of races Jeff and I will handicap over the next whole 40 minutes or so. The Kentucky Oaks will be our one Friday of the 7 stakes races that we're going to handicap here. Again, for more of Jeff's full card analysis, be sure to check out expressbet.com and news.first.com as he has the full cards laid out both days for you. The Derby City Distaff kicks off our Saturday coverage. Then we'll have the Distaff Turf Mile, the Pat Day Mile, the American Turf, the Churchill Downs, the Turf Classic, the preliminary grass race that always leads into the Kentucky Derby, and then it'll be Kentucky Derby 150 set for a post time of 6:57. It'll be race number 12 on the card. So from our handicapping, we are going to look at races 7 through 12, 6 through 12, starting with the Derby City Distaff on Saturday. Kentucky Oaks goes as race number 11 on a 13-race card. That's our Friday offering. Tournament play this weekend for folks at expressbet.com. A reminder, you cannot play tournaments on the First Bet app, but you can at expressbet.com. We've got a couple feeder tournaments, a $40 feeder tournament Thursday at Churchill Downs today for the Derby card, if you will. That will lead you into a potential date in the Friday tournament, which has a $300 entry fee. So play today for as little as $40. You can qualify for that Friday tournament. The $300 Churchill feeder on Friday could get you a free pass into Saturday's big money $3,000 entry fee First Kentucky Derby Challenge. So if you want to play in that big $3,000 tournament on Saturday, a couple cheaper ways to try to get in on Friday for $300. Thursday, you got to qualify twice. Win it Thursday, get in on Friday, and then maybe you can make it into that $3,000 tournament free of charge. Santa Anita also has a series of handicapping tournaments towards bigger ones at the end of the year or at the end of the meet. So $40 Santa Anita feeders this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And when it comes to promotions, we've got you covered. $50,000 exactathon. That means if you can hit 6 exactas on the card, races in exactas in 6 different races on the card on Friday, you'll share in $25,000 in additional money with other players who hit 6 or more exactas on the Friday card. Same goes for Saturday. So when you play at First Bet and Express Bet, be sure to log into the promotions. The exactathon is a big time one that you want to be taking a look at. The exactathon details. That's for the Kentucky Derby Challenge, the big money tournament. We talked about the $3,000 tournament on Saturday. And then, of course, the exactathon, the $50,000 exactathon. $20,000 split for 6 or more. You get a $5,000 bonus if you hit the most exactas on either day. Add it all up, $50,000. Plenty of ways to play and reasons to get after it. And Exactas, Jeff, are going to pay well in these big field sizes and as difficult as many of the races are. Let's talk Friday. First off, 7 stakes races on the card on Friday, from the La Troyenne down through the Kentucky Oaks. We're going to focus on the Kentucky Oaks for our handicapping. And a bit of news out of the Kentucky Oaks right off the bat. Tap It Gently, the one, is going to scratch out of the race. That was announced today from trainer Eddie Milligan through the Churchill Downs publicity office. And that's a big scratch, because not necessarily that you thought the one Tap It Gently was going to be a major contender, but it brings Our Pretty Woman into the field for the Kentucky Oaks. And Jeff, let's give the fans a chance to see this year's Oaks field. As 16 entered, 14 can run. Again, with the one Tap It Gently scratching just a bit before we started our podcast, Our Pretty Woman is now in the field. Candied would be the other also eligible if there is a scratch in this race between now and scratch time on Friday. So Our Pretty Woman, a pretty big input into this field, coming off her second in the Fairgrounds Oaks.
Yeah, she actually deserved to be in the field. I'm glad she got in. Her form was good enough for sure. She'd won her first 2 starts. Very good second in the Fairground Oaks, earned a 93 Beyer number. So Our Pretty Woman gets the racing god smile on her. Mm-hmm. This is a very strong edition of the Oaks in a sense that there are a number of improving fast fillies in this race. I say fast in terms of speed figures. Several of these have earned 90+ Beyer speed figures, which is unusual, and most of them are still getting better. So that makes us very competitive. You look at Tarifa; she's 7-2 in the morning line. You'd think a filly with her credentials would be lower, but because of the depth of the field and other possibilities and other wagering, opportunities in the race for others that are better prices, Tarifa is probably not going to be much lower than that, and maybe not even. Maybe she'll even be higher. She is very fast on figures, good style, and I expect that she'll continue to run well. But I opted for Just FYI, last year's champion filly, who she too has a very good style in the sense that she can set in the second flight and then make a run. She was short in the Ashland in her comeback, but still ran very well, earned a good number, a career top speed figure without really being knocked about, has really trained well since. I expect Just FYI to step forward and become even a better filly this year than last. And the way she's been breezing, Jeremy, she looks like she's ready to explode.
Of all the horses that I've watched on video from Churchill this weekend, for this weekend over the past 2 weeks, she's been the one that just consistently makes you drop your jaw. She has really trained exceptionally well. Bill Mott's been hard on her since the Ashland, and he had to be, right? Because that's the only start she had this year. And you recall the interviews, and we showed some of these before the Ashland Stakes. Mott was talking about, look, it's not ideal to come back in a race like the Ashland. She was supposed to come back at Gulfstream in the winter, spiked the temperature, missed that start. But he said, if you want to get to the Kentucky Oaks, you have to get this race in. So he was admitting that he was running a short horse, as you called her, going into the Ashland Stakes, and she still ran well. Since then, he has been on not an every Saturday pattern. I mean, she's working like every 5-6 days between those starts, and he's getting the most out of her and as best he can in the morning to make up for some of that lost training, because she's got to get 1 1/8 now. But boy, the way she trained in this workout that we're showing you here from the 22nd, her subsequent workouts, just absolutely fabulous the way she's been training. She was training with Resilience, who's Mott's Kentucky Derby hopeful in here, and they ended up having to separate those two because they worked too strong together and ended up each going solo from after the time they worked in company together. The smart move, because they have both really trained well. Bill Mott's got his horses peaking at the right time, I think, towards Oaks and Derby weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. Look, normally I would be like, okay, just one start on the year, the comeback in the Ashland. I'll be against Just FYI. You know I love her. I picked her last year in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and I want her to be my Oaks horse. And coming into the last 2 weeks, I still didn't think she would be, just coming off the Ashland. But the way she's trained, she absolutely could win this race. And she's right there for me, too. She's 1 and 1A with me in this race. With Torpedo Anna, I think Torpedo Anna is really training well. She's run exceptionally well here at Churchill with a 9-length win. Her second in the Goldenrod was a good effort on a day when Intricate was just amazing that day. Intricate didn't follow up from 2 to 3, but Torpedo Anna's got good races over two good races over the track. Her win in the fantasy last time from the 10 hole was exceptional. Now she gets the benefit of a good draw in post 5. I think Torpedo Anna's another one in here, along with Just FYI, who could give Tarifa a real run for her money. The question with Tarifa, Jeff, as you look at her form, she's got 5 career starts. The one bad effort, 4th beaten 6 on her form, was the one time she ran here at Churchill. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about how they've changed the track, Churchill, from last fall to now. Some of the ingredients, the makeup of the racetrack. Maybe horses who've liked it in the past won't necessarily like it now, and horses who didn't like the old track will like the new one. But Tarifa's one, blemish on her form is the one time she was here at Churchill.
Not only that, but she's been the benefit of small fields and soft paces too. I'm not trying to knock her form. I mean, you look at it; it's terrific. That's just the one race you mentioned. Other than that, she's won all her races, and the 95 Byron number that she earned in the Fairgrounds Oaks at career top. But she's had good trips, and she hasn't had to overcome any adversity. And that in this race, you have to show that you can do that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like Just FYI. We mentioned her Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, part of a very fast pace, 22-2, 46 and change over a dead track at Santa Anita last year. Did it from the 12 hole. I mean, that to me showed that she has that reserve energy when called upon. And as you mentioned, her workouts since then have been very aggressive, but she looks so good doing it. I mean, she's going fast in the morning, but without any effort. She changes her lead smooth as silk. She looks like a filly who is ready to be the kind of 3-year-old filly that you'd expect to justify filly to be, which is to say get better and better as you get older. So that's the edge I think I give her over Tarifa, who hasn't necessarily proved that. But look, I mean, there's so many good fillies. You mentioned Torpedo Anna. She was visually very pleasing herself in the fantasy, and there are others in here that are starting to get good with legitimate numbers. Even a big price like Power Squeeze earned a 90 when she won her race from off the pace. And I think the pace is going to be legitimate here. I don't think they'll be going, So you better be good to win this race. And Just FYI showed me that she was good enough to win a race like this last year, and I think she's going to come back to that form on Friday.
With so many big banging barns in here that everybody knows and plays, the Brad Cox, Todd Pletcher, we haven't even mentioned Leslie's Rose, the Ashland winner. I mean, you've got horses that are going to get bet in here, with Tarifa and Just FYI and Leslie's Rose. Power Squeeze is going to be the one who's overlooked in here, and she's awfully, awfully good. She might be the best finisher in this race, and as you mentioned, there's plenty of speed in here. She's always getting better from the next to last call to the final call, and in terms of a pedigree to stretch out now to 1 1/8 for a lot of these fillies for the very first time. She's by Union Ranks out of an Awesome Again mare. She's as bred as well to go this 1 1/8 as any in here. If there's any of the major players who don't necessarily have that 9 furlong pedigree, to me, it might be Torpedo Anna, but the way she finished at Oaklawn makes me think the extra distance isn't going to be a big deal. But just on pedigree alone, she's probably the shortest of the main players in terms of, just pedigree thoughts of stretching out. Fantastic edition of the Kentucky Oaks. I think you can go a lot of different ways in this race. 14 horses are probably going to enter the way it looks. We've got still with one also eligible. So you're going to look at a capacity field, try supers, great way to handicap and bet this race for sure. Go after it. You've got some chances in there. Power Squeeze, the long shot play to mix in there, but all of the logicals in there. Jeff and I both agree. Just FYI, the most dependable of the logical players, the way she has been training. I think she's going to run a race.
And not only that, but there is a possibility of rain tomorrow, and she's won on and off track. Just FYI, won the Frizette. That's just another box you can check on her resume. So, again, looking forward to not only a great Oaks, but a great day of racing on Friday at Churchill.
Let's turn our attention now to Kentucky Derby Day, Saturday, May 4th. And Stakes races up and down the line at Churchill Downs, starting in the 4th race with the Knicks Go. They'll have the Turf Sprint in race number 5, and then we're going to start our handicapping in race number 6 with the Derby City Distaff. That 7-furlong race is used to be called the Humana Distaff back in the day. It's had great runners in it over the years. I remember a Zeri upset in this race one year. A 7-furlong sprint. You get some top-notch fillies in here. Goodnight Olive coming through the rail last year, getting banged around. I mean, there have been some good horses in here and some good ones upset. Jeff, I don't think we have that kind of standout. There's not an Azeri, Goodnight Olive kind of runner in this year's 10-horse field, but a very competitive bunch. And this might be one of the best betting editions of the Derby City Distaff they've had in quite some time.
And two very dependable and genuine rivals in here with Alva Star and Vava. And they both met in the Madison. And I liked Vava that day, and she fell short. Alva Star earned the win. She's got a little bit more tactical speed maybe than her rival, but they're very hard to separate. They were hard to separate in the Madison, and I think they'll be hard to separate in this race.
The track was playing towards the front for speed and sprint races pretty much the entire Keeneland meet, especially opening weekend. So Vava had it against her in terms of the race shape, trying to rally in the outside. And maybe the benefit that day was Alva Star, but she earned it. And we know her credentials prior to that race would made her a deserving winner of the Madison. So it wasn't just the track that carried her. But if we can get a rematch of what we saw there at Keeneland, this should be a good one.
Vava is still running 6 lengths from the lead, a quarter mile to go. They turn for home. Here's Alva Star right alongside of Red Carpet Ready. These two going at it. Just over a furlong to go in the Resolute Racing Madison. Alva Star has struck the lead. Vava is running late, still third, challenging for second past the 16th pole, still 2.5 lengths behind the leader in deep stretch. Alva Star with Vava running on. Here comes the wire. Alva Star wins the Resolute Racing Madison under Tyler Gaffalione.
There's pace in here to help Vava, so I think she's the standout off the pace because there's some other horses in here who can flat out run early, and I think over 7 furlongs here, it might be enough to wear down Alva Star because Alva Star, we knew she was good at 6 furlongs. The 7 was the question, and she held in the Madison, so you know, maybe that track profile got her just enough to that extra furlong. I think Vava's the one to beat. I love the outside post going 7 here, and Irad Ortiz gets the ride back his second time aboard. Maybe he knows her a little bit better and has a better sense of when to go. But I'm with Vava in here like you are, and I think she kind of gets us off to a good start. Will she go favorite? Will she be second choice? Kind of, you know, probably going to be one of the absolute top 2 or 3 choices in the wagering in there in race number 6.
It shouldn't be lost either that Vava is 2 for 2 at Churchill. I'm a big horse for course guy, at least if nothing else as a tiebreaker, you know?
Right.
So, and an added little factor for her. And your point about the pace and the race shape and the track is also pushes me to her corner, and the outside post again will allow her to move when she wants to move. She can kind of settle out there, no dirt in her face, and then kick on with the long stretch and long run in. So for me, Vava, a gun runner filly and genuine, consistent, fast on numbers, and absolutely should fire her a best shot. And I think it'll be a winning one.
Next up is the 7th race on the card at Churchill Downs, and we'll handicap the Distaff Turf Mile, Grade 2 company here for $750,000. This starts the Pick 6 on Kentucky Derby Day. Pick 6 will be the 6 races leading right up to the Kentucky Derby itself, not to the last races on the card. So races 7 through 12, Pick 6 races on the card. And a note in here from Marcus Hirsch at Daily Racing Form. He has number 1 AG Bullet running in this race, cross-entered in a stakes race on Friday as well. They're going to scratch out of the Friday race and run here Saturday. So keep AG Bullet in the Distaff Turf Mile here, the one cross-entered Friday and Saturday, according to DRF. So that's some news in this race. Jeff, I thought a couple in here that I wanted to give a shout out to. Chili Flag. I thought Irad Ortiz opting to ride this one was kind of significant in this particular spot. He had been riding Cairo Consort for Todd Pletcher with some success coming off a stakes win. That he's gone to Chili Flag in here for Chad Brown, I thought was kind of significant. Drawn well in the 3-hole. You've got Copice, the other Chad Brown coming in from Europe, former John Gosden trainee with Frankie Dettori riding. So Chad did pretty well in the jockey colony, getting Irad and Frankie Dettori on a pair of his runners. How do you see this one shaking out in the Churchill Downs Distaff Turf Mile?
Right. I went and watched some video of Capice overseas, and I think she is a terrific filly. Fourth in the Sun Chariot in her last start. That was at Newmarket. Inspiral won that race, and I thought Capice stayed on very well in that race. She didn't have any excuse per se, other than that was a fantastic field. Obviously, Inspiral came out of that race and we saw how good she was.
Right.
But Capice is a good filly. You go down a ways, and you notice that she won, and this is pretty impressive. I actually did watch the video of this as well. She won a 29 runner field at Royal Ascot called the Sandringham Stakes, carried 129 pounds that day, and was always within range, and then responded. And I don't think it shouldn't be lost on you that Frankie rode her that day. Also rode her 2 races back when she won a listed stakes at Newmarket. He knows her. She can give you a very good late burst, a late kick. She's going to lay back. I was kind of happy that AG Bullet's in the race because that'll ensure decent pace. And I think Frankie will take a piece back, hopefully get her some cover. And when he turns her loose, she can really quicken. And I really do think she's a good filly. She's trained well for her U.S. debut. She can run well fresh. We know that. She won her debut. I think at 5-1, to me, there's a gamble for Chad Brown, Frankie Dettori, number 11, Capice for me to win. And that's a good one of my better plays, I would say.
I like those two for Brown, Capice, Chili Flag. If I'm playing the pick 6, I'm not going any deeper than 2 to get things started. Plenty of pace in there. I think, like you said, an AG Bullet just makes it even more so with that turf sprint speed from the rail draw under Junior Alvarado. So let's go next to the 8th race on the card at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Kentucky Derby Day rolls on with the Pat Day Mile. The Pat Day Mile, 1-turn mile, of course, at Churchill Downs. $600,000 named for Pat Day, of course, the legendary rider, rode Lily T to win the Kentucky Derby back in 1992, I believe it was, with the Lily T. And Pat Day, the all-time leading rider at Churchill Downs. And he's got some records at Keeneland and Churchill. They're going to stand for a long time. I mean, he was, and Oaklawn Park as well. He's probably got records there that nobody's going to break for some time. One of the marvels of longevity, Pat Day, as good as he was for as long as he was throughout his career.
Well, this is a race, Jeremy, that we have a California invader who's very, very fast in Vlahos. He won his debut, and what was going in, I knew this was going to be a hot race. There were several very fast-working, good horses in the race. He had trained well enough to win first time out, but I said, from the rail, I just don't see it. And he just opened up and just kept on going, and it was purchased privately after that race, training really well now for Doug O'Neill. And this race did not actually come up as strong as I thought it was going to be.
No, Knightsbridge isn't here, and I thought he was going to be the star.
Absolutely.
Of this race.
There's a few others. In fact, there's a race later on in the day, an allowance race, first level allowance that had some horses in there that I thought would be in this one. So, so I think Vlahos to me is not only the quickest of the field. I like the fact that Maldonado, who knows him, who went back to ride him and is basically a speed rider. He's not going to grab him or say, oh, I don't know if he can go a mile. Let's just grab him and choke him back. No. Maldonado lets him run. And that's what I think Vlahos will want here. Just open up and run everybody into the ground. I don't see anybody in here who's quick enough to run with him. But even if there is, he is outside. So if there is pressure inside, I think he can sit out there. But I hope they don't. Just let him roll and show him your heels.
Let's take a look back at that debut win where he earned the 98 buyer March 9th at Santa Anita. Frank Miramati on the mic.
Vlahos, the one to catch at the top of the stretch. Ball Don't Lie chasing gamely in second. These two are dominating at the 8th pole. It's Vlahos maintaining a 3-length lead. Ball Don't Lie 7 back. Feel the Magic finishing strongly on the outside of Santarena, but it is Vlahos. Vlahos in complete control. Cruises home to win by 5.
Jeff, what do we make of Nash here? He's probably going to be the post-time favorite in here. I think he's second choice in the morning line. He's a horse who's been bet almost every start. He's been 9-5 or less at every trip. Brad Cox trains Nash, and he's a horse to me that's just kind of like an in-betweener, right? They can't quite figure out what he is, so this race makes sense because it's in between. It's a 1-turn mile. He's not a Derby horse. Is he a pure sprinter? I don't know. Like when they're trying to figure out what to do with a horse and you're going to get a short price, I'm willing to try to beat him in this spot.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure about him around one turn. He's a Medaglia d'Oro. He might want to go longer, and he's look at the interior fractions of his races: 47.3, 47.4, 48.1, and this. I mean, they're going to be going down there in 44 and change. So I don't know whether Nash is going to be the kind of horse who's going to want to cope with the early splits here. He'll probably drop out of it if they ride him with the intent of making one run. Maybe that'll work better than if they try to chase. And he's a good colt. We featured him when he won that Hot Springs race a few weeks back on our It's Official show, and I was impressed. I thought, but I didn't think they'd back him up to a mile. And now this is
right. I thought, okay, you got the 2-turn win. Maybe you move on to the Preakness out of that race. There was but yeah, back to 1 turn. I don't know. And you mentioned like the splits. I think it's really important because if you go down and look at his past performances, when they went 45 and change at Keeneland, he gave ground in the stretch. When they went 46 and change in the Gun Runner at Fairgrounds, he gave ground in the stretch. So the 2 times he's been around fast paces, he hasn't had anything left at the end. And so he needs a slower pace, perhaps around 2 turns to show off his best gear. And he's not going to get that in this spot. Vlahos is not going 46, 47. I mean, he's going to come out of there running. And the Churchill Downs track is fast, folks. It is fast. And, look, if we get rain, things might change up and that for Friday into Saturday. But it's Kentucky Derby Day. I mean, Todd Pletcher one year famously called it, they're running on 4th Street out there, which is the street that goes by Churchill Downs. I mean, it's going to be a highway. It's going to be fast. It's going to, elicit fast times. Nash isn't going to get a slower time in here. One horse I want to throw out there for the Pat Day Mile, and I think if your horse is the winner, Vlahos in here, Day is very interesting from off the pace because if Vlahos guts everybody, he's 6 furlong speed, he lasts the mile and runs everybody off their feet. Someone's closing to run second in that scenario way more often than not. Day is one that you want to keep an eye on in here, I think. This is an Ohio bred. He looks cheap on paper, but he's proven himself at Churchill in November, and his comeback race in the Lafayette at Keeneland was really good behind Glenn Gary, who's a real horse for course at Keeneland, was a stakes winner there in the fall. I thought Day ran a really good race in that spot, and he's got the right style here for the 1-turn mile. I think Day on the underneath side of the exacta probably will be a little, I think we'll get a fair number on Day.
I think he will too. He's got that style, and I know they're going to let him settle and then make one run, which is what you want because if we're right about the favorite, he's going to run theoretically anyway. He'll run everybody off their feet that's chasing him, and I think Day will be farther back, and then he can make one run from the quarter pole home and pick up the pieces. Why not? It's got the style and lightly raced, improving numbers. He's not fast enough to win, but he's improving, so he may be fast enough. On Saturday, but I see your point on Day. He is a very good underneath horse for this race based on the projected race shape.
And Top Connor's going to get bet after setting the pace in the Bluegrass and an impressive debut winner. But he's the only horse who quit in the Bluegrass. The 2-3-4 finishers ran 2-3-4 all the way around the track in the Bluegrass. So that race is not very good on paper. I mean, you look at it on paper and you say, well, that wasn't so bad in the Bluegrass. That was not a good effort the way the rest of the race shaked out. So I'm not on Top Connor here on the cutback. So I'm tossing Top Connor. I try to beat Nash. Now we got ourselves a good betting race. So Jeff's got Vlahos. We'll throw Day in there, and maybe we can get ourselves a really nice exacta in the Pat Day Mile.
One other thing I want to mention is Vlahos is 8-1 in the morning line. You might get 8-1 in the rolling exotics, but I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he'll be 8-1 on the toe. So you may want to try to hook him up and maybe get a little bit more value in the pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, whatever you're playing. I think he'll be a better price in that pool.
Good horse for the exactathon that we're talking about. Maybe get him in there second and click one of your 6 exactas that you need for the promotion. Let's go next to the turf now at Churchill Downs on Saturday, from the Pat Day Mile on the dirt to the American turf for the same 3-year-old cast. They'll go a mile and 16th, though, on the grass in this particular race. And the American 3-year-old turf scene is trying to find maybe its leader. They know that Endlessly's pretty darn good, but he's going in the Kentucky Derby, Jeff. So the top American 3-year-old turfer's not in this race. They had contemplated running in this particular spot, but there's one from overseas who will fill the void, I think, according to the way you're looking at it.
Yeah, his name is Legend of Time. He's no secret. He's by Sea the Stars. He's a Godolphin, he's an Appleby. I mean, these are the ones that always seem to run at least as well, if not better, here when they get here after beginning their career overseas. And this one actually ran 3 times in Maidan. All 3 of those races were this year. All 3 of them were very impressive wins. They kept them below the best there. A couple of allowance races won a very valuable stakes last time. Time form ratings have produced a forward move in every one of his starts. And if you look at the video of this colt, he just moves like a good colt. I mean, he has that beautiful, easy early action that settles off the pace, and then you smooch to him at the top of the stretch, and you go boom, he explodes. And I expect him to beat this field, which does not contain any major champions that I can see. And this is again, I don't see any U.S. based runners in here that blow me away. I mean, 5-1, for example, on Agate Road. I mean, if he's truly 5-1 in this race, then I really have confidence in Legend of Time.
Yeah, Agate Road's been the workmate for Fierceness for about the last month. I don't know how many more punches he's got left in him, because he has been thrown around the racetrack in the morning in workout terms, not physically, but just he's had his heart ripped out almost every morning, where Fierceness just blows by him and drawing off once a week. So I don't know what Agate Road still got left in the tank. But what we do know about Legend of Time is he looked awfully good in the Jamariah Stakes last time out at Maidan.
8th and now asked to extend a little bit. Heads into the straight, the leader, Legend of Time, plenty of room to come through. The short price select. Out deeper, Musical Act to Hoku. Courtier starts to work into it. A Claim to Royalty seems to have thrown up the white flag. What happens in Vegas passes him. And Musical Act still seems to have something in the locker here. Gives Legend of Time a run for his money. Legend of Time leads a length and a half. Now makes it 2 lengths, and he kicks away in the late stages. Legend of Time goes on to record a nice win in the final race. And the margin on the line, 4 lengths. Godolphin go 1-2.
Margin could be important in this particular race, because when you look at the other horses in here that have been racing in the U.S., it's nothing but blanket finishes. I mean, you go down the past performances, and these horses are all a neck away from 4 wins in a row, or a neck away from 4 losses in a row. I mean, they've all come to the wire. The Rushaway decided by the neck. The Transylvania, 3 horses within a half length at the wire. You look at the California horse, Stay Hot. He's won 3 stakes in a row by a neck, a head, and a head. Again, he's literally like 4 feet away from being over for his last 3. I mean, there is no margin for error in this race at all amongst the American horses in here. And the fact that Legend of Time, as beautiful visual mover as he was, and was able to kick clear late, that looks like a winning move. Underneath him, throw him up in a hat and let the flowers come down, like after the Breeders' Cup races or the Derby, because I have no idea who runs 2, 3, 4 in here. But I think Legend of Time just becomes a single for pick 6 players, for multi-race bettors. Of course, we're already in the pick 5 territory here in race number 9. That'll also start the late pick 4 that goes into the Derby, right? 9, 10, 11, 12. Derby's race 12. So I think you're going to start your multi-race wagers in the pick 4 with a horse. It's like single or spread is what we like to say, when you're constructing a ticket. This is a classic example of that. If you're not singling Legend of Time, I don't know how many you have to use to feel comfortable in a race where the photo finish has been the rule of thumb, not the exception.
Yeah, I mean, none of these American horses have really done anything to stand out among the others. You're right. They'll put them in a hat and choose one. But Legend of Time looks like one of the better 3-year-olds that Appleby's brought over. And I love the fact that they've allowed him to develop. They haven't thrown him to the wolves. They haven't done anything stupid. They haven't said, okay, break your maiden, let's go to the Guineas or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just going to develop. Again, being by Sea the Stars, he should be a late developer and he should run on. One thing that when we picked up that race on video, Legend of Time was always within range right from the start. He didn't drop out of it and make one extended run. He's got tactical speed. I mean, I think Frankie can put him wherever he wants, and wherever he wants is going to allow him to be within range from the quarter pole home. I don't see anybody out kicking him.
Right. Frankie Dettori didn't pick up a great Derby mount this year, right? He ended up on Society Man. He's going to be a major long shot in there. But he did all right on the undercard, picking up for Chad Brown with the Gosden horse coming over for the Godolphin runner here for Appleby. Could be a very good undercard for Frankie Dettori. Let's go to our next handicapping challenge. It's the Churchill Downs Stakes, race number 10, 7 furlongs. We saw the Derby City Distaff earlier on the card for 7 furlongs for the Filly Mare Sprint Division. This one in the Sprint Division for the Colts, and some middle distance types might be more the calling card in this one, including Zozos, who won the ACAC Stakes at Churchill Downs during the September meet.
1-2 off the turn. Stage Raider needs to find a way through. 3 Technique switches to the far outside as they race for the mid-stretch marker. Zozos is still in front and he's shaken up now. The lead is 2. Stage Raider fights on. 3 Technique putting in a final try. Zozos still the leader. Stage Raider's coming on once again. 3 Technique down the center, but Zozos finishes strong and wins it by a length on the wire.
Not only did he win the ACAC, but he won the Knicks Go overnight stakes on the Kentucky Derby card a year ago. Zozos is used to being in this spot. He was in the Kentucky Derby of 2022. So it's the 3rd straight Derby Day appearance. He's not going to be affected by the crowd. He is coming off a layoff since the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but a fresh horse in this mile trip should fit pretty well, I would think, Jeff.
He's a 5-year-old now by Munnings and out of a mare by Forestry. So if you got this horse in your barn and you didn't know anything about him and he'd never run, you probably think, he probably won a sprint, don't you think?
Yeah.
So Brad Cox sprints him first time out at the fairgrounds and he wins.
Mm-hmm.
How many sprints has he had since then? How about 0? He's 5 years old. He has never sprinted again, And he's run long and he's run okay long. But I always felt if they just allowed him to be what he was bred to be, a sprinter, he'd be pretty darn good. And a 1-turn mile isn't a sprint, but it is a 1-turn race. And I remember handicapping the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last November, and he was 4-1 in that race, and he was like the first horse I tossed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm saying, if this was a 1-turn mile, yeah, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then he ended up getting beaten 18 lengths, and it didn't surprise me. But the good news is they stopped on him. They turned him out. They're bringing him back going 7/8 of a mile. The work tab looks a little light, which leads me to believe that maybe they're just kind of getting him ready. Maybe he's not 100% wound up. He's trained well. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
We know he can run well fresh. We know he likes the track. So there's a lot of positives in his chart. I'm not convinced he's an absolute single or anything like that, but I do expect him to run well. But I do have him on top. But there's a few others in here that are improving. A horse like Bo Cruz, for example, his numbers continue to rise. He's a colt that's late developing. He looked good winning the Commonwealth. He's 10-1. I think he's going to like a 1-turn mile. He's one of these horses, again, where they routed him, and maybe he's a 1-turn horse, Jeremy. So there are a lot of angles like this that you can use. I want to spread this race, but I'm certainly expecting that Zozos will run well.
Hoist the Gold fits into that group too, right? I mean, he was up near the lead last year in this race, ran the good second in here behind none other than Cody's Wish. There's no Cody's Wish in this year's field for sure. And then Hoist the Gold got sent long. He ran well in the Pegasus. Let's send him to Dubai or Saudi. Now he's trying to come back for Dallas Stewart and get back to what he probably should have been doing, going back several starts. So back to 1 turn. I believe I misspoke and said we're talking about a mile in this race. It's only 7/8 of a mile, as you correctly said. So don't want to send anybody wrong. There's 7 furlongs here in the Churchill Downs handicap. I love Tejano Twist. Everybody knows that. We're big fans of him. Huge closer down at Oaklawn. He keeps running his good races. He was 3rd in this race last year. Again, there's no Cody's Wish in here, but there's also not a great pace setup. I don't think this is a very fast race, so I don't think Tejano Twist is going to get the setup that we might want in here. I think Bo Cruz made the lead at Keeneland coming out of route races. That tells you there wasn't a lot of speed last time out in the Commonwealth either. So Zozos, Bo Cruz, turning back, Hoist the Gold. Those are the horses that are going to be up near the front, but they're horses who have gone a mile and longer, so they're not backing up. I mean, I don't think it's a totally heated pace in here, and the ones who are up there aren't coming back. So I think this is a race where if you got a deep closer like Tejano Twist, whom I'm a big fan of, I just think he's up against it in this particular spot. Yeah,
I think he's going to – I would not be surprised if he hits the board, but I don't know how he's going to wear down the front speed, who aren't going to have to go fast. I even think Mr. Wireless, who knows about him? Came off a long laugh, was visually impressive, earned a triple-digit buyer number in an allowance race at Fairgrounds. Prior win at Churchill. I mean, he's a middle price horse you can throw in as well, which is why I think it's a spread. But I do think Zozos will fire fresh, and it's funny because he's a front-running route horse, but I think that even going 7/8 under this pace scenario, he'll be right in the fray as well.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting race. And like you said, spread. And I totally agree in that respect. If you're playing pick 4, pick 5, pick 6, this is a race you want to use some of your budget on and try to get as much coverage as you can afford here and where you feel comfortable, where the cutoff line is between win contenders and horses who can just finish underneath and not necessarily play in the multi-race wagers. Let's go to the next race on the program at Churchill Downs. It'll be the 11th, the Old Forester-sponsored Turf Classic. Mile here on the grass course for mile and an eighth on the grass course for $1 million. We've got a good field in here. It's our Express Bet race of the week. You can get my full analysis of this race in your email inbox each and every week. Be sure to go to Express Bet or First Bet and sign up for the weekly newsletter, and you'll get my race of the week sent to you each week. The Turf Classic, Jeff, this was not an easy handicapping task in my estimation. I ended up in here with a couple different horses I think have a shot. Integration, I'm very busy. I'm interested in the speed of Never Surprised for Todd Pletcher, trying to go all the way in a race that doesn't have a lot of pace, but I don't feel he's going to wire the field at a mile and an eighth. There's Naval Power in here for Dettori and Appleby. There's some good options in here. The one thing I feel comfortable about is Never Surprised is going to make the front in here, take him as far as he can, and he's the kind of horse that may hold on for second, and this is maybe the way to gamble on the race. He's 10 for 12 in the Exacta lifetime. So from an Exactathon standpoint, as we talk about that promotion with First Bet and Express Bet, I'd want to get some 8s in the second slot in this race, but who's going to take on top to win it?
I want to take I'm Very Busy. I just think as a 4-year-old now, his 2 races this year have been terrific. He was beaten in the Pegasus World Cup Turf, but he still ran really well. I know he had fractions to run it, but they finished fast too. It was fast early, fast middle, fast late. Very impressed. He was 14-1 that day. I didn't think he was that good. And then I realized that maybe he's going to have a heck of a 4-year-old season. So he went down to Fairgrounds for the Muniz, and he was favored that day. And what a powerful late punch he had in that race. I mean, he verified the strength of his previous race and verified the feeling, the thought process that he's a way better 4-year-old than he was as a 3-year-old, and he was a good 3-year-old. So I think he's ready to become one of the leaders in this division, and pace or no pace, I think he'll find a way. He came from so far back in his last 2 races, but he doesn't have to come that far back. He doesn't have to lag and make one run. I think he can lay, maybe if the pace is slow, hopefully somewhere in the middle, or maybe not last anyway, and then have not too much to do. But I think he's going to find a way. And the last 2 races, under Irad, I think he's really, really found himself.
And if you watched his last race, you might want to keep your eye on the outside coming down the turf course in the stretch here on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Here he is with John Dooley on the mic and the Mervyn Muniz.
Gigante making a move now as they turn for home in the Muniz Memorial Classic. Gigante has taken the lead from Strong Quality through the final quarter of a mile with Hamo. Johnny's Fireball toward the inside, charging his beatbox. And here's I'm Very Busy, who's storming home for Irad Ortiz Jr. They come past the 16th, and to the lead, it's I'm Very Busy, and I'm Very Busy impressively. I'm Very Busy raced away to win the Muniz Memorial Classic by nearly 5 from Gigante.
Now, Jeff, horses improve from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and some don't, and you got to make that, estimation this time of year because you had the winter and now they've had a race or 2 back. Integration was a horse who beat I'm Very Busy by 5 lengths in the Hill Prince last year, and Integration looked like a future star. He came back in the Pegasus World Cup Turf to the point that he had not faced older horses in Stakes Company, and they made him the favorite in that race, a crazy favorite at 6 to 5, even that in the Pegasus World Cup. The pace in that race was fast, and he just didn't have the same kind of punch. They went 46-109, and he wasn't the same kind of horse. Then they cut him back in a sharp race in the Maker's Mile, which had world-renowned miler in there, Master of the Seas, and he ran 3rd in there. Naval Power, who's back in this race, beat him as well. I'm just wondering if he hasn't had the right kind of race yet. The Pegasus was too fast. It was too sharp for him last time. This at a mile and an eighth in a race where there's not a lot of speed. I mean, Never Surprised is going to be the front runner in here, and he's not a complete blazer. this might be what looks on paper like a wake-up call for Integration. It just might be a race that kind of suits his style a little bit more, or maybe he's not as good as he was as a 3-year-old and didn't make that development to take on the older horses. What do you make of Integration?
Well, I think from the rail, he's going to get a great trip. He's going to do exactly what you want him to do. He won't be in front, but he won't have to work hard to be where he needs to be. And I don't know if the pace here is going to be blazingly fast. He should be where he needs to be to have whatever chance he's going to have. He actually earned a career top buyer number in the Maker's Mark, even though he was beaten 4 lengths. So he didn't produce a forward move. He just wasn't up to beating Master of the Season, who is really, when you think about it. So that wasn't bad. So he's 5-1. I'm Very Busy's 4-1. I think they both have a chance to outrun those odds. Certainly, I believe I'm Very Busy will. The other Brown that I was looking at, I didn't mention him, was Program Trading. I saw him out here at Del Mar. He won the Hollywood Derby. He's not as fast on figs as the rest of them. He's a nice horse. Again, to me, he has to prove that he can produce that leap that I'm Very Busy already is made. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm not sure if it's going to be there. They're both 4-year-olds, but I'm Very Busy. He's got 2 amazing races this year, and Program Training is making his first start since December for Brown. So I respect Program Training. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit the board. Same for Integration, but I'm Very Busy. He's already done more than what they've done. So that's why I'm going for him.
Right. I've got it 1, 6, and 11 over the 8 in here. That's the way I'm going to try to attack it. Take 3 shots and hope that Never Surprise takes him a long way, but not long enough. And one of these really good finishers will put him away in the stretch and maybe hold on for a piece. That sets us up into Kentucky Derby 150 next up here on the program. And that's how we're going to wrap up our handicapping here for the It's Official podcast. Jeff and I have had a ton of content over the last few weeks about the Kentucky Derby. So now it's time to kind of put a bow on it, Jeff, and give our final thoughts on this field of 21 right now. Mugatu is still eligible to run as an also eligible if there's a scratch between now and 9 a.m. on Friday, which is scratch time for the Oaks Day card. A little bit of news about the Kentucky Derby. You're seeing the morning line odds here. Churchill Downs open wagering for the event on Tuesday. There's been $600,000 already bet on the Kentucky Derby. Current odds show Fierceness as the 8-5 favorite. Very low price there. Sierra Leone is 5-1 in the actual betting at this point. Forever Young, third choice from Japan at 8-1. You and I have talked about this for a couple weeks and month or so now, and this is exactly the wagering as it's going now, how we thought it would be. Fierceness favorite, Sierra Leone second choice, Forever Young from Japan to third choice, and then the Brad Cox horses are right there. Catching Freedom, Just a Touch are going to be in that same kind of mix. What do you make of this year's Kentucky Derby, and what prices you might be able to expect on Fierceness?
Well, everybody was telling me I was going to get 5-2, maybe 3-1. So it's not surprising to me that my top selection Fierceness may go shorter. But the more I get closer to the race, the more I believe in him. His form is terrific. He's so calm in the morning. He's a push button horse. He's a professional. He's training terrific. He looks great in his gallops. He looks great in the flesh. I like his outside draw. Everything has kind of fallen into place to me. And I just think Fierceness is going to put on a show. And I expect him to win. Now, you can make money with this race by gambling underneath. And, there are various ways to do that. We discussed that on Tuesday. We've got it in the wagering guide and all that. But to me, I think Pletcher and Napoli are gonna be celebrating on Saturday night.
Fierceness is the horse to beat. There's no question about it. And I don't think they're going to if he shows up. That's as simple as it is. I don't think another horse is going to beat him in this race. And that includes with a little bit of trouble. Now, a disastrous trip, then that be to every horse in the Kentucky Derby. No, I can't. I was trying to remember this so I could come up with an example because I don't like to just talk and not give examples. That's my style. I can't think of a horse who had a horrible trip and won the Derby, So if you get a horrible trip, you're going to lose. I don't care which horse it was. The ones who've had bad trips, just you can't overcome it and win the Derby. But I'm not assuming that to happen with him. With the outside draw is a positive. With his tactical speed, it's a positive. The fact that he debuted on Travers Day, from the very first time this horse walked on a track, he's around 50,000 people, right? So he's had the big race experience at Florida Derby down at Gulfstream. A lot of, tight quarters and hullabaloo and a lot of people in the paddock and that Coliseum kind of paddock at Gulfstream. Now he gets something similar at Churchill. He just seems like he's had the boxes checked that he needs to have checked coming into this race. If he's healthy, if he's right, and he runs his race, I just don't see them beating him. And like you said, there are still ways to make money on the Kentucky Derby picking a favorite to win it. One of those is the Superfecta. I ran the numbers a couple days ago and mentioned them on Twitter, but there are 116,280 different ways the Superfecta can come out.
Wow.
116,280 different combinations in the Superfecta in the Kentucky Derby. That's 20 times 19 times 18 times 17, because 20 of them can win, and when the winner's out, 19 are left who can run second and down the line. That's how you figure that out. Think in a 10-horse field. In a 10-horse field, there are 5,040 combinations. You think, oh, it's twice the field size. There's twice as many combinations. That's not the way math works. No, from a 10-horse field to a 20-horse field increases it by almost 25-fold. It's 116,000 combinations in the Super versus 5 in a regular 10-horse field. So if you want to gamble on fierceness in this race, take a shot at the Superfecta. You don't have to put all your budget on that. Great, race to play exactas, tries, all that. Multi-race wagers that end with fierceness as a single can provide great value because, look, all the losing tickets are going to pay the winners, and a lot of people aren't going to be singled into the Kentucky Derby. So all those other tickets that are trying to fish and find somebody else to end the pick 4, the pick 5, they're going to be paying you when you back the right horse if fierceness is right in here. So there are other ways to find value than just looking at those two numbers blinking on the tote board, 2-1, 9-5. I think he'll be 5-2 at post time. That's my prediction. I think he goes 5-2. I think you're looking at 9-2 on Sierra Leone, and then you're at like 8-10-1 on those third, fourth choices. Forever Young, Just a Touch, Catching Freedom. Those kind of horses are probably going to vie for the third, fourth, and fifth favorites in this particular race. But take a shot on a Super, Jeff, or exotics. Who do you like underneath fierceness in here to help the betting public? I know we talked about some of our long shot plays earlier this week on the It's Official podcast. Talk about some of the horses that you might work on the underneath angles.
Right, well, first of all, I'll take all your word for that. I was told there would be no math on this show. So I'll accept what you say.
Beyond gambling math, that's the end of my math. I don't get any other math.
No, the one 20-1 shot that I'm definitely going to use is Stronghold. I mean, I love the way he's been working. I think he's undervalued because his buyer number didn't come up as strong as I think it should be. Time will tell if I'm right about that. But I'm gambling at 20-1. I can be wrong and live with it. But he's a relentless horse. He's got tactical speed. He's not going to be in front. He'll be in the second flight, removed from whatever heat there may be, and he'll stay on. And as a son of Ghost Sapper, I think he'll produce yet another forward move. He's never taken a backward move, and I think he's ready to step forward. He's, like I say, he's been working really sharply in the morning, and I do believe he's going to run as well, maybe better than he ever has. What that nets him remains to be seen, but if you're looking for a horse underneath at 20-1, better use Stronghold. I don't really know if hang on. I don't really know what Sierra Leone's going to do from the 2-hole, because I liked him going in, but I just think that the task at hand is going to be more difficult than I thought, because he's going to get shuffled back and he's going to take a lot of dirt and he's going to have a lot of work to do from the quarter from home. He's a horse that I completely trust. I mean, I love this Bluegrass one. I just think he's a really, really good horse, but I think he's been dealt a bad hand, I think, in regards to the draw. So can he rally and finish second, third, or fourth? Yes, he absolutely can. But something unforeseen is going to happen for him.
I think, Sierra Leone, if he runs like worse than fourth, I'll be very disappointed. I still think he's going to light the board somewhere. But his job on winning this race got a lot harder, I think, from post number 2 in here. And the way fierceness is going, right? If fierceness wasn't training as well, then you'd be like, boy, look at the form, right? The form for Sierra Leone just looks better than the other horses in this particular spot. So you've got a horse who's training so well and has better form in fierceness. His top end form has been better, faster, stronger, more remarkable in his victories than Sierra Leone. So, but there's no better mile and an eighth or mile and a quarter horse in this race than Sierra Leone. So he's got that going for him. It's just about the trip, how far back he gets, how the race shapes up, and how it all plays out. For me, a price horse, Resilience for sure. One that I've been high on for a long time. He's in there. Domestic Product is a price horse. I think it can be in the underneath. The two Oaklawn horses I'm a little bit interested in for the exotics, Mystic Dan and Just Steel. I don't think either one can win, but you're looking at a couple horses at some big prices if you're playing tries and supers that you want to get in there. And I'm going to go back to one that we liked him at one point. Then we didn't like him at all. And now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm going to use him underneath endlessly. His races have been so good on the back end, the way he finishes his races. His first couple works at Churchill were terrible. I was ready to throw him out. I didn't like him at all the first two times he worked. His last work and his gallop since, he's like actually coming around. And, you know, I'm not saying he's going to pull an Animal Kingdom and win this thing at $50 mutual. I don't think that's the case. But I know this, he can get a distance of ground, and he's a finisher. And I'm looking for closers at big prices to use underneath. That's the, you know, that's the fit. That's the square that fits in the spot here in tries and supers in the Derby historically. I'm going to use him underneath. I've got endlessly back into my mix, bottom spots in here. You know, I mean, if he runs second, third, probably, you know, maybe not one that I'm looking at, but he can light the board in here and get a shot.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to miss the super because you didn't use him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
So,
you know, there's a lot.
Anybody can run fourth or fifth, and he certainly has a right to run his running style, picking up the pieces. I think, you see, again, if I'm right about the horse that I like fearlessly, I think that there's going to be a lot of horses dropping away chasing him. You know, it might even be correct. It might even be the horse that I like. I hope it won't be, because I think he's a relentless type and stronghold. But I mean, the kind of horse that is in the top of the stretch and has dead aim and thinks he can win and lays his body down and then gets discouraged and just waves the white flag, and here comes the closers. You know, that's how these races often are decided, at least in terms of the exotics. So, you know, you mentioned endlessly, and who's to say he won't be running lane? In fact, I'm pretty sure that's the way they're going to ride him. They're going to say, look, don't participate to the quarter pole, and then pick off as many as you can.
Yeah, stay outside of all the kickback and all the stuff. Run wide, stay towards the back wide, and then see if you are a mile and a quarter horse when the others aren't. And you know, and that works a lot of years to get yourself a little bit of a share of the Kentucky Derby. If it comes up just short, maybe he's one of those horses you want to look at perhaps for the money back special. You can get up to $10 back on your win wagers with Express Bet and First Bet on Friday and Saturday in select stakes races if that win bet finishes second or third. So those $10 money back specials are races 7 through 11, the final the 5 races leading up to and including the Kentucky Oaks. And then on Saturday, races 8 through 12. So 10 different chances to take advantage of the $10 money back special. Friday, races 7 through 11, and Saturday, races 8 through 12. So that include the Derby and the Oaks on those 2 days for the $10 money back special. Not a bad chance to take a shot on a Derby horse who you think might be a $50 mutual if they happen to win, but if they run second or third, to get your money back up to $10. So if you want to bet a long shot in the Kentucky Derby, be sure to do it with Express Bet and First Bet. That $10 money back special could be handy to get, you know, some of your money back on that.
No question about it. But I'm really looking forward to this year's Derby, Jeremy. I think Fierceness is a good horse, and I think this sport needs good horses. I mean, they need marquee horses, and he strikes me as the kind of colt that nothing will bother him. He's never missed a beat. It's hard to hard to fault his form. You talk about some crazy thing that might happen on Derby Day. I remember back. Okay, I'm an old guy. 1967, when Damascus was supposed to win and fell apart in the warm-ups and just was not himself, and turned out to be much the best of that crop. But on one day he wasn't, and finished the track. I don't think that's going to get to Pletcher's colt. I think he's a professional. He's a pro. He's class. He'll handle anything. He'll handle any pace scenario. I just hope he goes out and does what he's capable of doing, because we need a colt, or any colt, but especially him. I think we need him to go out and do something really special. I think he will.
And whoever turns in the remarkable performance on Saturday in the Kentucky Derby, the attention will move to Pimlico next for the Preakness Stakes. A reminder that future wagering for the Preakness is open currently right now. There's about $170,000 already in the win pool for the Preakness future wager. That's going to close on Saturday prior to the running of the Kentucky Derby. So if you want to get your Preakness future wagers in, be sure to do so. Right now, Bob Baffert's Muth is the 3-1 favorite for the Preakness future, 7-2 on Fierceness, 8-1 on Sierra Leone. You can get 10-1 on Forever Young as the fourth individual choice. As far as the new shooters go, Tuscan Gold for Chad Brown, who's sitting out the Derby awaiting the Preakness. He's the lowest price of the new shooters right now at 22-1 in the Preakness future wager. So be sure to check that out. Go to Preakness.com, click on the future section, and you can get the profiles of all, I believe there's 32 individual interests for the Preakness future wager. We've got profiles on all those horses. So even the new shooters that you might not be up to speed with from the Kentucky Derby, before you bet the Preakness future wager, you can learn more about those at Preakness.com. We are excited for this weekend. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday to recap it all on It's Official. We'll take on 5 hot topics, and I guarantee you all 5 of them are going to be from around Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday from this upcoming weekend. Jeff, this is the one to enjoy, right? I mean, we put a lot of hard work into it as people who work in the industry, and some of the days are long and the nights are longer, but people who work for a living, really work for a living, are laughing at us that it's hard work, because it's not. But we get to enjoy the fruits of these labors coming up on Saturday and Friday at Churchill Downs. It should be a fabulous weekend.
You know what I'm happiest about, though? And that is, actually, I have an opinion. Sometimes the Derby is like, just throw my hat. I don't know who's going to win.
Yeah.
I don't really like the horse I'm picking. I have to pick somebody.
Yeah.
And usually that's when I'm not even close. But this one I like. Okay. Win, lose, or draw. I've done the research. I've done the work. You've done the work. We both have opinions, but they're parallel in many respects. And when, whatever happens, but we're ready. I know we're ready. I hope the horses are.
Yeah. I'm with you. There are years you do all this and you can't figure out who you like in a Derby. I remember picking Conveyance. I remember picking Bandera horses. I'm like, I don't even like these horses, but it's like the best of what is left in my opinions. This year there are great opinions, and there are great reasons to like some of these horses, and some horses at prices for underneath. So I'm very excited to dig in. I'll be playing heavily in the Superfecta, the 2-day pick 6. That 2-day pick 6 at Churchill Downs will be races 5 and 11 on Friday, including the Kentucky Oaks, and then Saturday races 6, 10, 11, and 12. So the 2-day pick 6, the Superfecta, and the Derby, those are the 2 pools I'm going to be attacking hardest on my wagers. So I hope you all have a great Kentucky Derby. Thanks to Jeff for all his hard work over the past several weeks here. We get to enjoy it on Saturday alongside you. So hit the winners, collect, have a great Saturday on Derby Day, and then come back on Tuesday and check out the It's Official podcast. Good luck in Derby 150, everyone.